everyone, it's Sally here, and for today's AmaZix Ask Me Anything interview, I'm speaking with Ali, who is the CEO for Global REIT. Hi, Ali.
Hi, Sally. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So before we get into your company details, maybe we can just start out with a little bit of background about yourself and just the details about your history.
Sure, yeah. I've been in Dubai for the past 13 years, primarily doing real estate. And in the past 13 years, we've done all aspects of real estate, from marketing to brokerage, then even development, construction, even owners association management. So I have about 4 or 5 businesses already where we do the whole spectrum of real estate. And from last year, I started working on this new project, which is the REIT. And really, it's a value add and extension of the whole real estate offering. Currently, as a group, we have about 400 employees. And since the time I started, it's grown a lot.
So creating Global REIT was kind of a natural transition for you then from real estate onto the blockchain, it sounds like. So you have a very diverse history with real estate, and it sounds like it's kind of just a natural fit for you.
Yeah, I mean, of course, as academia, when I was in college, I studied in the US at Austin, and so I did computer engineering, so I'm very well versed with the whole tech side of stuff. And then my experience in the real world was all real estate, so bridging both of those together was something, which really fit in well.
Okay, so for your company, I kind of wanted to start with just the basic details and just a few specific questions. So where will Global REIT be registered, and who is going to hold the assets that it owns?
Sure. So we've taken a Seychelles-based jurisdiction as the registration for the company, and that will be the holding company, and all the token sale agreements will be based out of that. And then all the assets will be owned by the Seychelles entity. So eventually all the token holders are really who own the assets through a foundation structure, which is based in Seychelles.
Okay, and in what countries will Global REIT have assets?
Yeah, well, of course, me being in Dubai, the first country we're starting off is UAE, because we have very good strength here and we have very good sourcing in terms of value assets. But then we're going to definitely expand to other mature markets such as London, even Far East, Singapore. Idea is we want our shareholders to get really, good cash flow based assets which are around the world, so they get a diverse portfolio.
Yeah, that makes sense. But is there some difficult legal issues with purchasing real estate that's kind of outside of your country? Is there legal hurdles or issues with that at all?
No, in each region or each country where you go, there's a standard way of purchasing assets, even if we're a foreign entity, and and you have lawyers for that. So we've got a global team of lawyers who are advising us based on the jurisdiction we're going to buy. Which is really, it's nothing as a legal hurdle. It's just a process which you really need to be well versed with and how to hold the holdings.
Okay, but like you said, you have a team of advisors, so I'm sure you have that figured out. So as far as your actual business model goes, what type of properties will Global REIT own, and do you have the name of the first one that you're going to own?
Yeah, so the first one is on the Palm, which Palm is an iconic man-made island in Dubai. It's one of the most visited tourist destinations. And what we're doing on the Palm is we're going to buy this 4-star property, which predominantly is a very heavily 5-star area. So we're going to have a very good value proposition from an operational perspective. And the hotel is called Misk by Shaza, and has great entry access to the whole Palm Island.
Okay, and if there was upcoming purchases, will there be information somewhere where people could find out like what will be bought, and like where would you find that information if you were?
Sure. So every 6 months we're going to publish a bi-yearly report where we'll publish the net asset value of the assets under the base, and in that whatever assets we've acquired in the past 6 months, you'll be able to get the full details of in that report in terms of the valuation and everything. And then every time we acquire an asset, we're going to put it on the website. So all the shareholders get a chance to see, okay, where is this new asset? Because remember, a lot of the tokens that they own have utilities around these assets. So whenever we add an asset and if there's any assigned utility to it, we're going to definitely announce it immediately.
Okay, yeah, and we will get into that because I'm sure people want to know what they can do with their tokens once they have them. So a question that we have from the community was, for the second property that you're going to be buying, what percentage of the rental income is expected compared to the hotel property? And also, what will the ROI percentages be for later assets that are acquired?
So the return on investment in terms of the dividend that you get is basically based on, it's a sum of all the rents that all the assets come up. So the first one we've managed to secure at 8% for five years. And so subsequent assets, we foresee we have assets in the pipeline in the same range. So our objective as a management is really to try to get assets on board at this 8% threshold and maintain this average income of all the assets that we get, so that the dividends, which flow through are sufficiently good enough for all the people. But but the theory about the income is that it's directly whatever income comes off the assets will be distributed to the shareholders in the GRET token.
Okay, so one question here too is how will the funds from the token sale and the average income from the room rates, how will that generate enough money to buy 3 more properties in 2018? Because if you're only planning to raise 20 million USD in the token sale and the first assets cost 75 million, so some people were wondering how that's going to work.
Yeah, so in your question, so let's talk about the first asset. The first asset is valued $75 million, and we're just raising 20. So the remainder of this value, what we're doing is we're giving the asset contributor tokens, GRET tokens. So effectively, he's also becoming a token holder in the GRET offering, and he's going to get dividend also out of the same asset through us as a structure. And so this same structure is what we're going to really adopt in buying future assets too. Let's say we have identified a second or a third asset. The asset itself is contributed, and in exchange we issue tokens to that asset owner. And the valuation of the tokens is based off whatever is the market at that time, and the valuation of the asset is based off what we get from a third party, such as CBRE or Cluttons. And, if you come back to that question about how we're going to buy from the free cash flow, effectively as a REIT, our mandate is to distribute all the income. So we won't expect to have free cash flows unless we've sold an asset. So let's say, in 1 year we sell an asset and we've generated cash. So we might use that free cash flow to purchase an asset again. Otherwise, typically our growth is really going to come out through a lot of the token swaps with the assets.
Okay, so it really does, the tokens play a big role in this, which we'll get into in a few minutes when we start talking about the dividends and the tokens. But I'm assuming you have somebody doing your financial auditing. One question that came up is that hopefully this would not happen, but if Global REIT went into debt at all, does the company have a plan for that?
Yeah, so currently we don't have any debt as a group also, and Aqua, we don't have no leverage. And even in the REIT that the assets we're acquiring are not leveraged at this stage. So our initial growth plan is to, not leverage on any of the assets. So it's all going to be cash on cash basis, which is a very, very comfortable position to be in. And then, like you said, we have appointed auditors, which are Deloitte, who are going to do a financial audit on the whole book of and all the income of all the assets. So from a shareholder or a token holder perspective, you'll get a very transparent window on really what's happening with the management, what type of assets they've acquired, where is the income coming from. And so with that, I think, people should be really comfortable in the fact that they know what's happening rather than, just sitting in the dark.
Yeah, no, that's great. And speaking of the management, will they be paid in fiat or token currencies?
So the management, from a perspective of the formation, they're getting, tokens, but then ongoing expenses, whatever income we've generated, they'll just be paid out as salaries, as any other normal employees. So that's going to be fiat. And then, as you know, the dividend we're giving is also based on dollars, right? Yeah. So really, it's a bridge between the real world and then the crypto world, where we're adopting blockchain technology, but really, at the end of it, we're doing real world business.
Yes. And so let's get into the dividends in just a moment. But first of all, can we just talk a little bit about why you think that Global REIT is a good investment and what makes it an appealing investment for people who are listening to this right now? Yeah.
So there are $3 trillion worth of REITs around the world, right? And so it's a very large, mature industry. But we're the first who are going to really adopt a blockchain-based methodology and, really roll out a REIT. So what's the difference between the two? Obviously, having this new technology gives you a lot of empowerment on how you can deal with, day-to-day activities of a REIT. For example, dividend distribution. Dividend distribution normally in other REITs is only limited to certain people in jurisdictions, and then the dividends go out in checks. Mm-hmm. The good thing with us is because it's blockchain, we can just press a button, give you the dividend, which really allows you to receive dividends monthly. And not only that, then it allows you to not be dependent on one area or jurisdiction where you are. So as a REIT, that's why we're called Global REIT. We're going to build a basket of assets, not only in Dubai, not in London. So they're not in one country. So you get income out of a diverse portfolio of assets around the world, which you can receive no matter where you are. So this is like a benefit of the blockchain, being rolled out. From a perspective of why I think it's a great opportunity now, because to allow the subscribers who are participating in the ICO now, not only are we giving them the REIT share, which is the GRET token, we're also bringing them on board with us as the management on the GREM token. So you're really becoming a partner and a shareholder in the management business also, that's where the huge potential upside is as we grow as a company and acquire more assets and our assets under management become bigger. You have a great potential to enjoy the upside of the token because that's where the management and you are, aligned together and are partners.
Yeah, it sounds like it's almost like a 2-for-1. So you get 2 tokens that do different things. So that's amazing. And it is great how the blockchain technology, it's like it cuts out the middleman. You don't have to wait for checks like you were saying. So it makes a lot of sense to implement this in a situation like what you have. So let's get into the dividends then, since we keep talking about the dividends. So what is the expected time frame for the first dividends?
So the first dividend is, so June 30th, we're closing the public ICO. So immediately, effectively, 1st July, we're going to start earning the income on the property because we've already secured it. So end of July is when you get the first dividend. So it really starts off immediately. And, for every subscriber, we have an allocation based on, so if somebody puts in $1,000, he gets both tokens issued at a 75-25 ratio. 75% is GRET, which is the dividend token. And GRET stands for Global Real Estate Asset Token. And then the other token is GREM, which is Global Real Estate Management Token. And that's 25% of your money, which goes into GREM. GREM also will give a dividend, which is the management company's income, but that'll be on an annual basis.
Oh, okay. So how will the trust pay dividends to the shareholders when the property will be finished in Q4 of 2018?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So as you know, this first property we've secured to get a great deal, but it's under construction now. So the way we've structured the transaction is into a 2-phase approach, where first, the money, which is the 20 million we're raising, is going towards buying the first tranche, which is the land. Mm-hmm. And then the second part of the improvement on it is really when it comes into play with the tokens. So as soon as we get the land immediately on June 30th, our income starts on the land because we're going to, the developer is going to pay us rent on the land. So the land itself is on a lease, and so during the construction phase, we're getting land rent. And then as soon as it completes, we get the income from the operation. And the operational income is, goes to all the token holders, including the developer himself, because he gets his tokens for the improvement that he's done on it.
Okay, so that makes sense then. And I also see that the dividends can either be paid in USD or USDT, which is Tether. So do we have a choice whether we want payment in USD or Tether? And can you recommend a good wallet if we were to receive Tether?
Yeah, so really at this stage, what we're going to do is once you have your tokens, you can log into your dashboard and say, okay, I want to choose what's the frequency you want on your dividends, whether you want them in your bank account or you want them in Tether. Depending on where you are in the world, you may choose whatever you like. So you can, if you choose Tether, you can have your wallet, which is normally an Omni wallet right now, but there may be more which come out as time goes by. And if you want a bank account, then you can say, okay, I want my money wired in this bank account, and at your frequency of choice. So you can say, I want it quarterly, I want it monthly. So you set up your preferences of how you want them.
So that's nice. So you can pick your currency and you can pick your time frame. So, okay.
But obviously kept it in dollar. So, that's where the risk of, volatility of the other cryptos is mitigated, because your income is based in dollars.
Okay. And so a little bit more about the tokens. You've already kind of explained GREM and GRET and the difference between those two. When issuing the tokens, though, for newly acquired assets, will they come from a reserve or will you mint new ones? How will that work?
So yeah, the way that works is, so we've set the rules around wherever we have a new asset, and that's when we issue mint new tokens, which we've so that the value of those tokens matches the value of the assets coming into the management, and that's how we intend to grow, really. So we've kept that in our contract.
Okay. And will the volatility on the exchanges, will that affect the revenue or the dividends in any way? Because there is a lot of volatility, so I'm sure people are kind of wondering how that will play out.
No, actually, to be honest, the volatility is independent to the income, because the income is just the rent being received from the asset. So it's really not at all dependent on the exchanges. I mean, if the exchanges were to be shut for a week, for example, that wouldn't even affect your income.
Okay. That's great. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's great because I mean, things can go crazy in just a matter of hours on the exchanges.
Yeah. You have your. I want to just give you an example. You are based in some country, and then they just go ban crypto, which you have seen around the world. It's not an issue. You just take your tokens to another exchange, or even or bring it back to our wallet. You're still getting income.
Okay, that's great to hear. I did notice that the annual return for the GREM token holders will be 1.25% annually. Now, is that on the total value of the tokens?
No, so that's again linked to the base of the assets that we have under management. So let's say the first asset is $75 million, and then subsequently we're going to add more. So let's say in year 3 we've reached the 1 billion asset management portfolio. So it's 1.25% of the 1 billion. Which is $12.5 million, and then we minus the expenses for the management team at that, which might be like legal expenses or basic salaries and and all that would be, and then whatever is net of left gets distributed to all the GREM token holders.
Okay, and once these tokens are on the exchanges and people are purchasing them, will they be purchased together or individually? So could you purchase a GREM and a GRET, or does it just come as a package?
No, they come as in a package in the ICO. Of course, when you go to trade them after the ICO, you're free to sell or keep whatever you want. You can even buy more from the ICO of one of them. But in the ICO, we've set the rules where every $1,000 gets divided into both, where 75% go into GRET, so $750 in that example, and then $250 worth of GREM. So again, in the same example, you would get GRET, which is at a $1 price. You would get 750 tokens of GRET, and then GREM, which is 7 cents, you'd get 3,571.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the ICO, you get them together, but then after the ICO, you're free to just sell or buy one or the other.
So they're not linked to each other. They're going to be 2 separate tokens. They'll both get listed. Both have their own utility. But they're linked basically in terms of how their incomes are.
Okay. Now, there are benefits to holding these tokens, like we mentioned earlier. So what benefits are there for holding these each year? So say you had like 10,000 GREM and GRET combined. Could you use these to stay in a hotel each year? And will the balance stay the same, or does the balance change?
Yeah, so for GRET, all token holders will it's going to operate like as a loyalty program on the assets that we have. So based on the number and the values of the GRET, you would get a certain tier of recognition, and then based on that tier, you would have benefits. So those could be discounts, promotions, even free stays, and it would vary from the value of which asset you're going to. And then from GREM's perspective, the utility on GREM is that all future acquisitions that we do, asset contributors will be required to hold a minimum value of GREM to contribute the asset, which is where you will see that GREM will not be in abundance of supply, because only in the ICO we are issuing GREM. Once the ICO is finished, there's no GREM more issuance. So, and GRET will be the only issued token for future asset acquisitions.
Yeah, it's neat how you have 2 tokens with 2 very different utility purposes, and both very useful. So as far as the hotel benefits, can you use the GRET tokens for things like food and beverages and stuff within the hotel?
Yeah, so depending on different properties, like in the first one, we intend to implement this, that you'll be able to use the token as a payment itself. But there might be assets which are, let's say, non-hotel based also. So in those, you will not be able to use the tokens. So it's going to be on a case basis from asset to asset, where you can really even use the token itself as a means.
Oh, okay. So somebody had a question that, let's say that the tokens associated to the fund's acquisitions, if they become too undervalued by the market, what actions would be taken for future asset acquisitions if that were to happen?
Yeah, so let's say the token, is $1 today, and then, it goes to 80 cents. So first of all, going to 80 cents in the normal crypto world is easily possible because there's no asset-backed logic to it. But in our case, even today at $1, you're getting 8 cents dividends. So going to 80 cents means you're going to get 10% yield on your cash. So there's a ton load of buyers who will really, easily buy at that point. But let's say, to answer the question, if it's at 80 cents, when we go to acquire an asset, we would then still issue the token at $1 of face value to the asset contributor so that the shareholders currently don't get diluted. And if it was $1.20 in the same example, we would then issue it at $1.20. So whenever we do an asset acquisition, the value of the token that we use will be the prevailing market rate and at a minimum of $1 to ensure that, all the the ICO subscribers are not diluted.
Okay, yeah, I think that takes care of that issue then. So it sounds like you've already thought this through, obviously. Can you share a little bit more details about the ICO? So maybe, when is it, the terms, if the US can participate, things like that?
Yeah, so the ICO is currently live. It's on, let me recorrect myself, the pre-ICO is live right now. There's a bonus right now for subscribing earlier. Based on when you subscribe, your bonus might reduce because we're running a slabs tier system. So the first $6 million is at a 20%, and then the next $3 million is at a 15%, and then it scales down to 5 and then 0, which is the public ICO. And June 30th is when we close the public ICO. And for all subscribers, it's open. US, we're not accepting because there's accreditation rules. Unless there's people who are qualified accredited investors in the US, which is normally when you're a $100,000 plus liquid investor, you can still get qualified and we can still, consider your investment.
Okay, so it sounds like you're in the middle of pre-ICO. People can go and sign up right now, and I will have links in the description. So I'll put a link to your website and to the section where they can actually go and take a look and sign up for that. So did you have any final thoughts that you wanted to mention before we wrap up here?
Yeah, in this current domain of $400+ billion market cap, which we're sitting on today in the crypto world, majority of the currencies out there are really not asset-backed. And they're obviously, highly speculative and volatile, where you have these 10% swings daily. The beauty is that, you've made good money as an investor in the crypto domain. And now, as a savvy investor, we're a great option to diversify. Because not only are you moving into the real world asset-backed realization, but also you're getting income and dividend out of it. So, my advice is really for all the investors out there, especially who've made their money in crypto, this is a, good chance to diversify a portfolio, and anywhere from 10 to 40% is even, people are really, it's a good chance to continue investing in crypto, but at the same time, get into something which is dividend based.
Yeah, it sounds like a great bridge between crypto and real world assets. So I like I said, I haven't seen anything else like this, and it sounds like a very exciting and interesting project. And thanks so much for chatting with me and sharing all these details. You were very thorough, and I feel like we've given everybody a great overview of your project and answered hopefully all of the questions. And let's stay in touch for future updates.
Yeah, sure, and I appreciate your time. And for all future prospects, it's easy to find us on the Telegram group. So if there's any questions, you can really get us over there.
Okay, and I will have links again in the description, so you guys can go and check it out. All right, Ali, we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, bye.